Hey filmmakers, today we're going to take a look at the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Cameras, and we're going to see if the IR pollution on these is all that bad. And if it is, do IR cut filters really solve the problem? Let's find out. Not all cameras have bad IR pollution, many of them have IR cut filters built into them. But the Blackmagic cameras don't, and they are infamous for having problems with infrared light. Now, if you're not really sure what IR pollution is, I'm not going to go all scientific about it, but basically the overview is that your sensor can see light that the human eye cannot, and it picks that up. And the places that it's the most apparent are in the blacks and in the shadows, especially when your talent or subject is wearing black or dark clothing. It can really pick that up. And the way that you see it is there's a lot of red introduced into your blacks. So your blacks, instead of looking nice and dark and rich, start to look more reddish and brown and muddy. And it's very apparent, and it just really does not look good. So what we're doing today are some camera tests with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. We're gonna throw a few different ND filters on there, like this very popular one from Tiffen, and it is a variable ND filter. And we're also gonna check out the Polar Pro Basecamp variable ND filters, the 1 to 5 and the 6 to 9 stop ND filters. Now, something to understand about IR pollution is that it's really not a problem when you're just shooting with the camera and the lens clean. But as soon as you add an ND filter to your lens and your camera setup, then the IR pollution becomes very apparent. Most of the more popular and affordable ND filters on the market don't have IR cut filters built into them, but the more high-end ones that get more expensive do. So if you haven't bought any ND filters yet, I highly recommend getting ones that already have IR cut filters built into them. Now I'm going to show you all the different test footage that I shot with an ND filter on and the IR cut filter on and off, so you can really see it all broken down. This first clip is our control, so there's no ND filter or IR filter on. This is just the lens and camera straight in. Now, to keep this nice shallow depth of field out in bright sunlight at T1.5, I had to boost my shutter speed way up to 1/2000th. Now, normally I'd shoot a 180-degree shutter so that I can have a normal motion blur, but this is just so we can see what the image looks like without any filters affecting the color. Now, I'm shooting everything on the Pocket 6K at 4K ProRes light, 24 frames per second, doing it all in the film, which is a flat picture profile, and then I've thrown a natural Rec 709 LUT onto it just to bring up the colors and contrast a little bit, but I haven't made any other adjustments to any of the footage in this. To show you that there's really no IR pollution, on the right, I've turned it up to 100% saturation, and you could see in the dark black of my hat and shirt that it's looking a little bit bluish, but there's no red or muddiness added to the image. Now we have the Tiffen variable ND filter on, full 8 stops, no IR filter, and you can see my shirt and hat are looking pretty reddish. Now we've thrown the IR filter on with the variable ND filter, and now everything's looking a little bit greenish because it adds a cast. So here they are side by side, left looking a little red, the right looking rather green. And then to really help you see it, we've put it up to 100% again. And obviously you can definitely see how the filters are affecting the colors. We've now switched to the Polar Pro variable ND, and we're at a full 5 stops with no IR filter on. And you can see my shirt is looking a little bit muddy, not very black. And then now here it is with the IR filter, and my shirt is looking much more green. All the other settings are the same. And then to see it better, we're going to put them side by side. And really, I don't think the left is too reddish. It is a little bit, but the right is definitely looking green with that IR filter on. Now, 100% saturation, you can see the left is looking kind of purpley, so the red is infiltrating, and on the right, the green is infiltrating, and it's mixing with a blue. I've noticed that the Polar Pro filters actually add a bit of blue to the image also. We've now switched to the Polar Pro variable ND filter 6 to 9 stops. We're at about 8 stops, and this is with no IR filter on. You can see that my shirt is looking, again, a little bit muddy and just a little bit red. Now here it is with the IR filter on, and my shirt is definitely looking very green. I found that these IR cut filters just add a lot of green tint to the image. Now here they are side by side. Again, I haven't done any color adjustments. I just threw the natural Rick 709 LUT on here. And you can see, obviously, if you don't make any changes, that your image is pretty wildly affected by adding the variable ND filter. And of course, that IR filter is just adding so much green. So it's kind of give and take. Do you want red in your image or do you want green? In this shot, we've switched back to the Tiffen variable ND filter at full 8 stops with the IR filter on, and what I've done in camera is added a plus 30 tint magenta, because I'm hoping that by doing that, it'll get rid of that green cast that's added by the IR filter. But as you can see on the left and the right, there's still green in my shirt. Obviously that 100% saturation is making it very obvious. So even adding that tint in camera of magenta isn't getting rid of the problem like I had hoped it would. So with the ND filter on and the IR cut filter on, we have that green. So in post-production instead, I'm going to pull the green out. So in Final Cut Pro 10, I'm just going into the master and then I'm pulling it down about -5. So it's adding a little bit of magenta back in and getting rid of that green cast. And honestly, I found that this is the best solution to make your blacks look deep and rich and also get rid of that ugly overall green cast. If you're gonna shoot with a camera like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K or 6K or any other camera that has a lot of IR pollution, you really need to shoot with an IR cut filter. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there are thinking, I don't have this issue, I can just throw an ND filter on there and I'm fine, I can change it later in post. Well, I'll tell you, it's pretty difficult to pull IR pollution out of your image. I find it a lot easier to just use an IR cut filter like this one from Tiffen. This is the T1 IR cut filter. Although it does add a green cast to your image, it's a lot easier to pull this little bit of green cast out in post-production than it is to try and pull out IR pollution. Because when you try and fix those dark colors like the shadows and blacks and get rid of that muddiness and that red, it's really difficult to do. It is annoying that you have to go into post-production and still change it and get rid of that green cast so you can have nice rich blacks, but I guess that's just one of the issues you have when you shoot with a camera like this. Now, of course, if you're going to shoot with your camera with no ND filters whatsoever, you don't need an IR cut filter because the infrared pollution just isn't a problem. But for me, and I think most of you, when you're out shooting in broad daylight, you need ND filters so that you can shoot wide open at f2.8 or 1.8 or whatever it is. So hopefully you found this breakdown useful. I know it wasn't that exciting. It was just a bunch of shots of me turning my head left to right over and over, but I really wanted to get detailed and help you guys break down and see what it looks like when there's IR pollution in your image. And guys, if you like this video, hit subscribe right now because I have a ton more videos coming out in shooting, editing, lighting, everything like that, and you don't want to miss it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.